But I'm not interesting at all. I'm the most boring man in Belgium.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Pre-Accident Podcast. I am your host for today. You know my name, Todd Conklin. That's it. Yeah, I got it right. Hey, today's fun. We're going to have a great... First of all, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for downloading. Thanks for putting me in your ear holes. I know you've done all those things. Get ready, because today is an exciting day, as is every podcast. They're all super fun. I had a great time doing this one. You're going to like this one as well. Today we're going to talk to a safety professional. Let's go to Europe. He already sort of self-identified as the most boring man in Belgium, which is totally saying something. That's not you got to work to do that. That is natural ability plus expertise plus just tons and tons and tons of experience. It is my friend and yours, as of today, Timothy van Goethem. And Timothy did a really interesting thing. So he's a global safety guy. Lots of you that listen to this are global safety guys. He had to go out and look at an event. And what's interesting to me is that we're going to talk about an event today, but we're never going to talk about the event because the event itself isn't very interesting. What Timothy wants to talk about is how they went out and really learned differently about this event. Now, he's got an organization. He'll talk about it a little bit, but he has a group of people he calls his safety monkeys. Thank you, Adrian Cockcroft, for that little help. That's been helpful. He went out and sort of shifted the way he thought and did a much different investigation than he'd ever done before or that his company had ever done before. And they went out and looked at an event, but instead of doing the classic sort of causal analysis, they went out and actually shifted the way they thought about the workers. The workers, instead of being the problem, in this case, the workers became the resource. And the workers were engaged in a way so that their expertise and profound knowledge of the actual work that's being done was used in understanding how the failure happened, and most importantly, used in understanding and creating a set of recommendations for change. And then, in fact, the final step, the changes that should be made. And it's a really great story. You're going to like this a lot. I think this podcast is informative. As far as the rest of the world's going, well, who knows? But we're deep into spring. It is beautiful in New Mexico, and things are great here. The podcast is just doing great. Thank you for downloading. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for putting me in your ear holes today. This one's good. You're going to learn a lot. In fact, probably the best thing for me to do at this point is to sort of gracefully bow out and actually bring Timothy on, because the conversation we had is completely worth listening to. Now, I will tell you, we had some connectivity issues at first, but we shifted that problem towards the end. So we'll sort of do some quick edits and get this all set up. But this, my friends, is Timothy van Goethem, and this is his discussion on learning teams and what he did, how he learned, and how he made it happen.
Well, that's normal. Actually, that's hard. No.
So let's get this baby started. My name is Timothy van Goethem. I'm an EHS manager for a global engineering company. And with two other persons, I started a blog called Preventiekronkels, which is about the same, safety differently, and founded around the same time, I think. Yeah. And besides that, I'm also a student at the bachelor degree integrated safety at the AP Hogeschool in Antwerp, where I've met my fellow safety monkeys. And because you cannot learn enough, I'm also doing a postgraduate safety advisor level 1 at the UCLL. And there my thesis for the bachelor's degree and the postgraduate is about looking differently at accident investigations. And I have these two phenomenal thesis advisors, which are you and Ivan.
I've heard of them. I've heard of both of them.
Yeah. They're quite good looking and quite smart also. I actually learned something.
Stay with the good looking part. That's a good place to go. Tell me more. I hate to interrupt this early, but tell me more about this safety monkeys thing.
So the name came from the Chaos Monkey guy, and it actually started with the idea of looking with some fresh starters differently at safety. So it's actually called SASM, which is Safety and Sustainable Management. And for the initiate, it's the Symbian Army of Safety Monkeys. And it's a little project where 3 other people of the bachelor degree are trying to find their first steps into the safety field. Safety Monkeys is more of an incubator to gather ideas and theories and try to look at the things with fresh ideas. And my role in this little group of monkeys is making sure that they find some good directions and keep those motivated and talented people going and finding their way in their first encounters in safety.
Wow, that sounds fun. That sounds really fun.
Yeah, it is. And as I said, they are motivated and talented, so that helps a lot. And my role is more of a guide. I try to keep them open-minded by letting them read other things like Dekker or Holnagel and you, of course. And the need for that is that school looks at occupational health and safety more in a traditional way, which is a good start, of course, and we all know that, but we also know that it doesn't answer all the questions we are having and the problems we are facing. But that's okay. I mean, school is very strict government regulated and they need to comply. But we got to get them started in this new view. And, somebody has to do it, right?
Yeah, I get that. And so jumping to why we're having the conversation today, you just went out and tried some new learning. Speaking of safety monkeys and kind of safety differently, talk to us about what you did, why you did it, what sort of sent you out on this new journey.
Well, it was an accident, an incident that happened in Iceland, and when I looked into it, it was too much naming and blaming without being explaining a lot. So my Central European boss he asked me to go and dig into it because he had the feeling that it wasn't the whole story, and I was like, yeah, it's Iceland, so why not? And my thesis is already the research part was already done, so I had some ideas about how we can move forward in our incident investigations, and I asked them, can I at least try the new idea already? And they completely agree with it. So yeah, that was quite nice of them to support that. And I think also you can always fall back on a root cause analysis if you really want to, because with the learning teams you get the context and you get everything you want. And if it doesn't work, you can always fall back, I think. And so it was kind of a safe journey for me to start on.
Timothy, that's a really good thing you just said. I mean, I think I forget that sometimes, but yeah, you can always go back to a traditional investigation. I mean, you're not giving up the ability to go back and do a traditional look at an event. It's not one instead of the other. You can do them in parallel. If one doesn't give you the answer you need, you can always change your method. That's a good point, actually.
Yeah, indeed. But today, with a friend of mine, we tried to do the root cause of this accident. And what I found really curious is that, so with the learning team, you go back in a given point of time, which can change during the learning team, as we had. But in the root cause analysis, you go back in time and try to define what is relevant and what is not. And with that kind of tunnel view you get at that moment, you're missing out a lot of details, because what we found out today is that, you will go back to PPEs and you will go back to training with that root cause analysis if you want it or not. But you're missing out the whole preparation and the whole communication, which we found in the learning team was actually the thing that went completely wrong there. And I think the reason why we do that is with the root cause analysis, you focus too much on what has happened, while as you said, you focus during a learning team on what is happening. And by focusing on what is happening, you look at all other things, because now it was an injury, but it could 2 days later it could be a complete different injury with the same problems we have encountered now.
So, what did you learn?
Oh, what didn't I learn? I think that's more a shorter answer. Well, for starters, the learning team or this maiden voyage, as we can call it, I went on it a different way as I would go on the root cause analysis. For starters, I didn't prepare at all. I just looked at the adverse events and I thought, oh yeah, well, let's see. Well, in normal root cause analysis, I try to prepare as much as possible in the beginning, but I was like, let's go and find out, because once you think you know everything, you will go and look for those answers, which I didn't. So that was really a challenge for me. I really liked it, but it was a challenge. And the second thing is the first day, if you get the team together, the second thing I learned there is that once you give them that voice, God, you earn so much trust at that moment. You just cannot shame it. They trust you because you look at those things differently. You let them tell the story instead of you telling them how it happened. And that was so powerful. They just were so engaged to get things done.
That's amazing. Talk to us about the process. Now, I know you said something really important just then, and that is that you didn't really try to predetermine the event before you got there. And I know, and you just actually said it, that really bugs people. That's really hard. That's not about being not prepared. It's about being not biased. It's about being curious as opposed to knowing, right?
Yeah, and then like Ivan said, you can really start ask stupid questions. He said that with the I think it was a helicopter accident that he had investigated, and once you don't know anything of it, you can really ask questions where nobody else will go because, well, it's normal work or it's within those procedures. While I'm like, okay, but why is it? And you get those guys so, yeah, you just start questioning their basis, and that's quite shocking for them and quite amazing for yourself as the lead investigator, if you want to call it like that.
Yeah, it's kind of whatever you're called, the leader guy or the facilitator guy or the coach guy or whatever word you use. So walk us through. So the funny thing about this, Timothy, and you know this as well, is that we don't really have to talk about the event, and to a great extent, most companies would prefer we don't talk about the event, but that's fine because the event's really just what happened. Walk us through the process, kind of from start to finish. So if I were going to try to do one of these anywhere, it doesn't have to be Iceland, it could be anywhere. What did you learn? Where should we start? Where should we go? And how should we move forward? Walk us through your process.
My preparation, as I said, was quite poor because you don't need it. And when we started the learning team, actually, that preparation was done by the people on site. I didn't tell them who they needed. I just told them, this is what I want to do. Get me the people in the room we need. So like the victim, the injured person, sorry, his teammate because it was close, and then they got the EHS manager of the client or of our contractor. They got the foreman of our contractor, and also the EHS manager of the site. So it was quite a small team, and that has its advantages because everybody can speak freely, and that is so important when you start these things because a lot of information is not going to be the fun information. It will be very very hard because you want to learn, so you don't want people get pulled back by that. And so the team at first, it was a bit strange. Nobody expected the questioning attitude. I thought I needed to convince them that it wasn't an investigation, but once you start with the questions, they just start like telling you the whole story, and that's the great part. I just have to say, tell me the story as of where you find it relevant. And the rest of the day, I just had to shut up and look pretty. And the story just came from itself. And I found that the hardest part of the whole day. That's shutting up. Looking pretty, no problem. But the shutting up part, because they just started with telling you what happened. And 2 or 3 hours later, we had a meeting. No, sorry. So 2 or 3 hours later, the meeting stopped, and because we started fixing, and you really need to break there. That's the moment you have to say stop. And now we are not going to fix, because you will miss so much helicopter view. You go back into that tunnel and go straight to the fixing part. So we stopped and we let it soak, as you call it. I'm not sure that it was needed, because the accident already happened 2 weeks before. So I think everybody already had an idea about what they thought was relevant. But for me, it was a good moment to refresh on the whole thing and look at it differently, by just typing it out, because the report, it writes itself. I never had an investigation where the report was that easy to write. And so during soak time, you and I had a Skype meeting just to go over it, and so the day after, I was quite convinced that we can really learn. Well, man, I wasn't prepared for this. Really, the colleague of the injured person, he just came with those brilliant ideas about how the work can be done differently, what tools they should use, and they just give me so much information. And well, it was good, but you also have to make sure that at that moment, when you start fixing things, you just start talking to other experts in the fields also. So I double check things with okay, is there another way to do this, or is this a good way? Because one view isn't always the best thing, but yeah, it was things that were agreed in the learning team. They were already rolling out that afternoon, and that was so powerful, because the guys in that learning team were so engaged, because I think, yes, finally somebody let them do the talking instead of let them do the listening. I think that was really important for them.
So the workers were engaged in a different level. What advice would you give other safety pros around the world? I mean, what's the benefit? What's the downside? Was it good? Was it bad? Would you do it again?
Well, was it good or was it bad? I can actually answer that question with somebody with something that EHS manager of the contractor said. He said, well, next week I'm having this big meeting with all the rest of my colleagues, and I'm going to introduce this concept, because this was really something great. We learned so much about it. And I was so stunned, because once you're in that learning team, that it's going good, but you don't have an idea that the impact is so big. And also my Central European boss, he was really stunned about the report in draft version, because I sent a real draft to him before, and they saw the potential. So people just got to get started, but there's also a downside. And the downside, it's not really a downside, is another perspective. The people who you give that report to, they will read it, they will like it because it's differently. But you have to keep in mind that while you are on this safety differently journey, they are mostly at the beginning or just not even started. So they will ask you, what was the root cause analysis? What were the technical things we can do? And that's okay, because they also let you think about things that you should think of, because it's not all fairyland and things like that. You should really take that in account too. I think that was for me not really the downside, but for me a very big learning opportunity, because I was surprised that other people were not thinking like I was thinking. And I know I knew that before, because other people would say that before, but once you do that report and they get something differently, they like it, because it's very thorough and it's very it's very, very good. But they will ask you what the what the technical measures are, and PPEs and stuff like that. And you just need to explain them that it has contributed and it surrounded the incident, but it was not a cause. And that is a big challenge.
Yeah, that's actually that's a good point you bring up because you're right. The management, the leadership of the organization, by definition, isn't going to be in the same place as you are in your thinking or in your process. And we've spent a lot of time, energy, effort, and money teaching them to ask you about root cause historically. So, they're going to want to know what's the easiest thing. Oh, that's not fair. What's the most important thing I can fix? Oftentimes that's easiest, quickest, and cheapest. What's the most important thing I can fix? And I will go out and fix it. How'd you handle that part of the discussion?
Well, we had I think 19 recommendations within this whole learning review. And what we said is, look, these and these and these things are already going because the colleague of the injured person, he wanted to give the toolbox to the workers with the new working method. He was really that engaged. Say, hey, let me do that because I think I can explain it quite easy to them. And that was a thing that kept everything. I kept everybody satisfied. We were already working on fixing the problems while the report wasn't even written. So I think that gave them the feeling that we found what was going on and what they wanted to. I think that's what they want to hear, and that's normal. Especially if you're working on global and Central European positions, you don't have the time to go into those details.
Well, you're right. I mean, I think one of the things that's so interesting about the learning team output, the work product, is that anything that can be fixed has been fixed. So usually the guys fix it during, while you're actually doing the learning. They'll come back in and say, yeah, we moved the parking place, or we now store the parts on the other side of the shop, or whatever. They'll move all the stuff they can move immediately, and that immediate action actually oftentimes is sufficient. But it also allows you the freedom to say, while these things are changing, these next things are things that leadership should look at. Did they were they threatened? Did anyone feel threatened?
No, not at all. Not at all. I think the engagement of the workers and of the local EHS team, because they were with it, they were really engaged and really wanted to get things done. And we also identified those things that could be done directly as quick fixes. So that were the things we could and should do within a week after our learning team. And actually, 50% of our recommendations were quick fixes. They just could do it in an instant. So people don't feel threatened because they are involved. And as of our management, they want to see results, and that's what they're there for. They want to. They ask you to fix the problem. They don't really care about how detailed you go in it. They just want to make sure that you are handling it, and that's a responsibility you have to take in mind when you start a learning team. It is a giant leap, and it was for me also a giant leap to go and start this thing. But just keep in mind that people are looking for solutions, and you're the expert that should do it. And everybody can be that expert, because I'm not convinced. We always talk about safety here, but I'm not convinced that it's only a safety thing. And we are now looking into it, how we can use this idea in basic design. So learning more from basic design engineering by doing a learning team, by asking the people what went well, what went wrong, what are the moments you thought this was a close call. So I don't really think you need to keep it with only accidents or incidents. I think we can keep it. I can use it for a lot more.
That's amazing. That's really cool. So final words, any final advice? What do you think?
Well, I think people just have to go and do it. And if they want advice or help, they just need to find somebody who has done it already and contact them. They can be you or me or whoever has done a learning team already. Contact them, let them guide you in that first maiden trip, and make sure that your first trip is worthy. Just don't do a Titanic thing and sing the whole thing, but make sure that you survive it and that you have a report that is presentable, and just do it, because it's not that hard. I think the hardest thing is to convince yourself that it's not that hard.
I think you're right. I actually think that may be the best advice I've heard a long time. The hardest thing is to realize it's just not that hard. The experts who know the work are there in the room. Everybody's pulling in the same direction. Everybody wants improvement. And the outcome is really you got better operational information. And when you have better operational information, you make better operational decisions. What do you think?
Yeah.
Would you do it again?
Oh yeah, sure. We are now, as I said, looking into it, how we can do a phase of a design with it, if it's any help, and we try to introduce the idea more and more. And as of the thesis would go, I am hoping that I can do it also for things that didn't happen, because now we had an incident. But I really want to use the learning team in the future for learning from how our processes are working, work as done instead of work as imagined, and see how we can learn and improve from that. Because it's not about the plan, do, check, and act. It's more like continuous improvement. You are continuously learning on this journey, and you need to make sure that you can get those innovative ideas of the workers within your system.
So what do you think, huh? Yeah, this is a great one. I mean, he's coming off of a really interesting place because he just did this rather large event learning, and they made a decision to not really follow the traditional approach, to not follow the traditional approach, don't get me wrong, but they wanted to see really what they could tap into, what they could learn from this, how they can improve, and to actually fix better things. And it was an incredibly successful event for Timothy. He did a great job. I think what's cool, it was also an incredibly successful event for the company and for the contractors. And everybody came out of that smarter, and everybody came out of it feeling like the goal was to improve. It wasn't to blame or to punish, but to improve. That is pretty remarkable. In fact, that's what we want to tap into. Okay, funny story. Today's that goofy day where they changed the time in the United States. Spring forward, fall back. I guess we're springing forward. This is the dumbest day ever. I like the other side when you get an extra hour of sleep. I think that's the best day. This one's just dumb. Dumb. And I had set my clock forward, kind of. Well, if backwards is forward, I set it forward. When I went to bed, I don't know, I had this all crafted in my mind, made the clock adjustment, and realized that I'd gone the wrong direction. At about 10:40, when I was a good 40 minutes late for recording this, Timothy called me and said, "Hey, are we going to do this today?" I still thought I had an hour and 20 minutes. And nonetheless, it's a technical faux pas. And then when you're doing it like between the U.S. and Belgium, it just gets it's a very complex system. Not complicated. Well, maybe it is complicated. It's not complex. It's complicated. It's hard to understand. Nonetheless, we got it done. Yahoo. That's the podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. Listen a couple times to this one. Tell your friends. It's pretty exciting. It's really exciting, actually, and super fun to listen to. Hope you get what you need. That's really important to me. Until then, learn something new every single day. I know you did today. Have as much fun as you possibly can. And for goodness sakes, be safe.